Okay. Someone once said that nostalgia is the opium of the elderly. And I want to thank you for a full inhalation. Those were great years for me. Crazy around the edges, but great. And I have very good memories, and you've reminded me of lots of them. So we've had two sections to this affair today, the first of which has nothing to do with the second, as far as I can tell. The first of which had the strong sense that I wandered into my funeral. I apologize for that. So long ago, my father taught me that flattery does not have to be believed to be enjoyed. So I certainly enjoy it, and I thank you for it. However, I now live in a old folks home. They have a fancier name for it, but what it is an old folks home. And the other day, one of the other residents said to me, "You know, you've heard the rumor that's going around about you?" I said, "No." I said, "The story is that you were awarded the Nobel Prize, but declined it." And you declined it because somebody else had done all the work. Well, I told them that it's sort of half true. The part about the prize was totally untrue. But all of my work, in my mind, all of everyone's work, is collective. And we put individual names on the work, but if you were honest about what goes on, it is a collective endeavor. And I don't mean stealing ideas in the normal sense. It's just that if you live in a community of intellectual discourse, you thrive, and that thriving feeds into your articles and paper or whatever. So that in my ideal world, we would all publish papers anonymously with perhaps a list of names on them of those people who agree with the paper. But, so I'm quite aware that for me, the work I do is collegial. And that includes the collegiality of my years at Irvine, which was a time of a great deal of ferment, not only in me, but in the world. I told Bill Maurer that he really hasn't been a dean. When I was dean, on 2 occasions, someone came into my office, put a loaded automatic weapon on my desk and said, "What are you going to do for us?" That's being a dean.
Okay, everybody, I'm happy not being Keep your firearms at home.
We like to tell the stories of Irvine, and they're all internal stories, but it lived in a context which was mentioned here, an extraordinary context of political ferment, of social ferment, of sexual ferment, of drug ferment, all of those piled into this little cluster of people. And you know, I think Bill mentioned, I mentioned to him that every morning the police reported to me what the faculty and students had been doing over the day. Often together. I never knew what I was supposed to do with that. But it did give me a sort of flavor of what was going on. And the wonderful farm the commune, is a source of many of my stories about my life at Irvine. It's like war stories, you know. There's the time that somebody from the commune called me up and said, "Our corn won't grow." I said, "Well, I'm not really an agronomist, but I think I probably know more than you do about such things." So I went over. "Where are you planted your corn?" "Over there where the chickens are running around." I solved that. And so I immediately got promoted to chief agronomist. So the next call is, "Our grass won't grow. Are you watering it?" "Yes, we water it all the time, and we fertilize it." "Tell me about it." Well, at that time, we also had some large animals for medical experimentation running around. And their procedure was to go over and catch the manure as it came out and rush it over to the grass and spread it as quickly as possible. Yeah. So maybe a little course in biochemistry. But I solved that one too. But most of them I didn't solve. They never solved the problem of governance. You know, these are nice people. They liked a nice life. They didn't want to interfere with other people, but they wanted the garbage taken out. And it turns out if you don't interfere with other people, the garbage just accumulates. So every once in a while someone would call me and say, "Don't tell anyone that I called you, but could you please get the garbage taken care of?" And so we would take care of the garbage. Wonderful, wonderful experience, the farm, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm not sure what I can say about the content of the comments about my work. I've always compared writing social science to writing poetry. That the thing is to write words that will produce images in your readers that are more interesting than you have in your head. That's the problem. That's the task. And I think when you accomplish it, you're very happy. And I think in my life I've managed to accomplish it. So the readers have found more beauty in what I've written than I thought was there. And that's very nice, including today's performers. The Irvine history, well, I should apologize, because as dean, I should have been commissioning those studies. So we should have had a study of what's going on in the farm. We should have had a study of what goes on with the graduate students. We should have had a study of the history. And I was just stupid and didn't do it. So you guys are a little late. I'm grateful because, for example, I had no sense of the graduate program as in the details that you've been able to give it. It was there, it seemed to function. I knew that, historically I know that there have been some very distinguished colleagues who were produced by it. But I never set John Van Manen to work on figuring it out, or Lynn Manen, you know, what was in my mind? I was busy solving a farming problem. Part of the overtone of this discussion is, where has this gone? Was this a failure? Was this a success? Was this something in between? And I think that's very interesting, and you know, I'm clearly going to be biased, but I'm impressed by what's happened. I think that when we started Irvine, I at least had a clear notion that the task was to start this system on some route, to free it from where it was and get it going. I did not have a clear impression of where it was going to go. And we made some pushes. Some of those pushes seemed to have endured marvelously. Given what has happened in social science generally, given what's happened in the world generally, the push toward a more mathematical, analytical, computer-based social science was destined to fail. It has actually succeeded here. That's remarkable. But I want to call attention to another thing, and it's fairly personal. I think we always look at how organizational, institutional experiments, how they go, what happens to them. We often fail to look at what they do to the people involved. You may have seen recently in the New York Times, there was a story about Norwegian prisons.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of interesting story because it tells the story of prisons where guards are playing games with the prisoners, and it's maximum security prison. But if you go all the way to the end of it, you discover that the recidivism rate in Norway and the US is about the same. But the guards are totally different. The guards in Norway are nice people. The guards in the US are thugs. And we have produced, Norway has produced a way of approaching that problem that affects the people involved. And I think Irvine, excuse me, Irvine affects the people involved. And I think it's a nice effect. It certainly was a nice effect on me. For me, Irvine was my first experience with the passions and joys and irrelevancies of undergraduate students. This was a period when, a lot of your undergraduate students were smart but a little drugged up. Or just plain neurotic. And when they wandered into your office, the chances were pretty high that their problem wasn't with mathematics, their problem was with sex. And that's what they really wanted to talk about. Well, it took a little getting used to for a Wisconsin boy, but I got used to it and I kind of liked it. I think that these were nice people, nice talking. And if I happened to run into one that I couldn't deal with, I took him or her home to my wife. And she had a very healthy distaste for anything smacking of psychotherapy. She would say, I don't talk to people about their problems. Come out and do the weeding. She'd put them to work in the garden, weeding. Turned out to be the best therapy they had in most cases. But we had a nice division of labor. I was sweet and innocent, and she just said, weed the goddamn garden. And it seemed to work. But the joys of teaching undergraduates and the joys of getting to know undergraduates made a very profound effect on me. It changed my thinking about my research, changed my thinking about my teaching. And I sense that a little bit around here, that Irvine has managed, or the School of Social Sciences has managed, to affect people, to affect the faculty, to affect the students. And the institutional history of what survived and what didn't is, relative to that, relatively unimportant. So if in fact you can say you made a difference in those people's lives, then I think you've done very well. And I'll claim you do, and I'll claim credit for it. And if you want to claim a little bit of the credit, you can do that as long as I'm not around. I think it's pretty damn good.